My goodness, I'm so excited. Guess what? I found a few articles that say the G-spot is our CUV complex. Our clitero-urethro-vaginal complex is the G-spot. They're still sort of speculating and not really coming out and saying it with confidence, but obviously, you guys, the G-spot is the CUV complex. I'm going to call it the CUV complex, okay? And it is great news because you all now can understand much clearer, and they're still doing studies, about how it works. So this elusive G-spot that before 2012, they all thought it was a spot and that it was something that was more physiological. They were looking for an anatomical structure, but just couldn't find it. But slowly, I think, they've got it, right? Bingo! The G-spot is our clitero-urethro-vaginal complex. Oh, what does that mean? All right, let me slow down. What that means is that you can get a better orgasm and ejaculate. Female ejaculation is more possible when you are more aware of the role of our CUV complex, okay? And what I mean again is we've got to deep dive all the way into this complex, both our partners and ourselves. We have to understand this complex much more in detail and much more comprehensively so that we can make sure we reach that orgasm, which I want everyone, all my women, to reach, right? So if we can understand the complex, we will achieve our orgasm more likely than less likely. All right, y'all? So all this wonderment with the orgasm probably will become less, and we can close that orgasm gap that men have, right? All right, so let's try and point out a few points. Now, again, I read a few articles, and one of the articles was by Danielle Molaleli, and she has a great article about the G-spot. If you want to let me know, and I have some other ones too, so let me know. But the summary of all this information with my own experience too in my practice is that it appears that they knew that there was no way a G-spot, a spot, could cause such beautiful, physiological responses to the orgasm. So they kept on digging, and then they really believe that this clitoris, the urethral, lower 1/3 of the urethral tube, and the paraurethral glands and the skein glands, which basically are the same, which is our equivalent to the male prostate, our female prostate. And of course, the anterior vaginal wall, the 4 to 5 centimeters within the anterior vaginal wall of the vagina, this is our complex. Now, the clitoris, of course, is the main big kahuna here. The clitoris is in charge of most of everything starting and getting excited and getting engorged and woken up to start our orgasm. So we've got to make sure that we've got the whole clitoris. I keep on emphasizing that. The whole clitoris has to be stimulated and engorged. So we're trying to get blood supply there all the time and wake up these organs. So it's important to make sure that you understand waking it up means touching erogenous zones, not just the so-called G-spot, which we can use interchangeably now that we know it's the same. Even though I know some people are going to fight to get rid of the name G-spot, but we have to give our respect to Dr. Grafenberg, who did discover this many, many years ago. But we still want to say the G-spot, just for simplicity, that this area that either swells or deepens or increases its sensitivity is the area that you really want to be palpating and touching, like I said, either lightly or deeply or vigorously. It all depends on what your partner needs. So you've got to communicate. So our partners need to know about our CUV complex, you guys. Now, we already had a hard time trying to get them to know about this clitoris. The clitoris is still not known. Imagine how hard it's going to get for them to know about our CUV complex. So we've got to do a great, spectacular job. And I'm going to be one of those people doing it. I'm going to go out there and try and get a movement going so that we know that the G-spot is our CUV complex, the clitero-urethro-vaginal complex, okay? And it's in charge of two major things, mainly your orgasm and your female ejaculation. And I said yesterday when I talked, I'm not talking about getting wet, y'all. I'm not talking about the vaginal lubrication that happens when you start getting aroused. I'm talking about the actual expulsion of fluid through the urethra, okay? Yesterday we talked about the fluid being three types. One, pure urine. Two, a mixture of urine, which is the squirting or the gushing, okay? Let's call it SQ for now. Or three, the female ejaculate, the real small amount of milky, opalescent fluid that has a sweet taste and comes into the picture as something that's a little bit less obvious. It's a little bit of a thick fluid, but it's not in the same amount, about 1 to 5 ml, while with squirting, can be over 110 ml, like I said yesterday. But the point here is that fluid from squirting is dilute. And yes, it has some of the same properties as the female ejaculate. And remember, I mentioned that the female ejaculate had the prostatic acid phosphatase. I'm correcting it from acidic to acid phosphatase. But now they're testing not using that particular marker, but the PSA marker, which we use in men, the prostate specific antigen, all right? So that's what we're using now. So we're going to switch from PAP to the PSA, which we already use for checking for prostate cancer in men. So the point I'm trying to say is that the SQ, the squirting, is a mixture, just more dilute urine, not pure urine like in the first case. And remember, all of them, all the three, 1, 2, 3, are non-pathological, meaning they are not a disorder. They're not a pathology. They're not something to say, oh my gosh, something's wrong with her. No, they are completely recognized female ejaculates, okay? So you've got to remember, no more judgment, no more criticism, no more complaining. This is real. The knowledge is out there now, okay? So we want to be able to experience that. And I would say either of the three are going to work, right? So whether it's the urine or the squirting or the female ejaculate, it doesn't really matter. Again, it matters if you have pain, if you have discomfort, if there's some too much fluid going on, you might want to get checked, like I said, by a primary care doctor. But as of now, those are the three recognized female ejaculation types. I'm so excited about it because guess what? We have our clitero-urethrovaginal complex to thank. And what's so interesting about this is that it really is connected, which makes it very complicated, okay, y'all? I know it's exciting to find, but it's still a very complex, right? And the reason why is that it really is influenced by how we touch it. So our partner touching it and whether he cares to touch it and how he touches it and whether he can find it, all that takes play. But also your partner, you need to be into your partner because there is a psychological connection to our CUV complex. So our clitero-urethrovaginal complex is keyed and wired to our psyche, how we relate with our partners. So our relationship with our partner will actually affect how well our CUV complex engorges and gets activated and gets awoken to now transiently or dynamically change from something that was just lying flat to something that's going to engorge and wake up after stimulation, right? Beautiful stimulation of the erogenous zones, including the anterior vaginal wall, the distal 1/3, is going to wake up and now be part of your orgasm experience and or / your fluid expulsion or female ejaculate experience. So that your male partner, guys, you've got to get to study the CUV complex. You have to. I'm sorry, I know I'm giving you a lot of work, but this is something that will make a huge difference in your ability to satisfy your partner. And you will become, I love to use the word King Kong, but you will become an expert in being able to say proudly that you know how to please your woman. I might even be able to say, you may be able to say, I or you know how to please any woman, because this is huge. This is amazing. Step by step, you can actually go in and please women more than before, because now we have a target. But you also have to show communication to your partner, not only knowing where to touch it, knowing where how to stimulate it, how much pressure. Again, all those are very important. But your relationship with your partner is going to play a role, because we found in studies that it's connected to the psychological brain of our minds. Okay, so that can go deep. I'm not going to talk about that too much right now. I've talked about it before, but right now, just know she's got to sort of like be in a good mood with you, right? She can't really be upset with you. That's the connection there, huh? Get that point across. Now, the hormones also play a role here. If you don't have good hormones, and I'm just going to say that broadly, it's been studied that your CUV complex might not be easily excitable. I've mentioned that before. Or it might not be a good size or a good responsive sensitivity organ, or it just might not be responsive, right, to anything. So you need the hormones because it's playing a role there. And I know all the other chemicals are too, but right now we've got to get your hormones checked, make sure your hormones are good in case you're having a problem finding or discovering the CUV complex. So just keep that in mind, okay? So the behavior also. So if someone's behavior is off, your behavior can affect the CUV complex when you get intimate. So your behavior, your attitude, all of these affect the complex actually waking up. Isn't that cool? So when you are having this psychological or hormonal or behavioral or even physical, for example, if you have surgery and someone wants to do something, a doctor wants to do something in this area, you got to be careful, because if you physically traumatize the CUV complex, that can cause female sexual disorder. So you want to be careful and make sure that everyone knows, don't touch, protect, make sure it is not damaged at all, no matter what happens, right? So you got to make sure that that's intact. You don't want it damaged at all. I'm sure it's very fragile, because remember, it's not that it's there all the time. It comes into play. They all have to come into play to make sure they become that complex, right? And whenever you are trying to stimulate it, you have to take into consideration that each person is different. It's unique. You're not going to get the same stimulation from one woman from the other. Please understand that. There's no way you're going to get the same complex, because they're different in sizes and shapes, textures, response, all sorts of things make it different, right? And even the bladder and the muscle of the vaginal wall, all that plays a role here. So you really want to know that your own CUV complex is your own CUV complex and is very different from person to person. Okay, so I just wanted to reiterate today that your G spot is the CUV complex, and there are a lot of let's see. There are a lot of there are a lot of articles out now that actually will confirm what I'm saying, which is so exciting. But I wanted to also, before I end this conversation, wanted to point out to you that the CUV complex is going to be, in charge of your orgasm and your female ejaculate. I remember they happen with certain criteria. Remember we talked about that you have to have it involuntarily happen, and it's got to be stimulation of the anterior vaginal wall, and you also have to do it before or during orgasm. And remember, the orgasm and the expulsion of fluid, the ejaculation can happen at the same time, can happen a little bit different, but around the same time during sex, during that time of pre-orgasm or during the orgasm, okay? And you want to make sure that you are aware of the different things that can affect the CUV complex. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I just gave you a few pointers to know for sure. And you also want to be aware that the fact that the CUV complex can be lightly stimulated or vigorously stimulated, but you have to put the whole picture: communication with your partner, understanding yourself, self-esteem, love for yourself. All of that plays a role because it communicates to your CUV who you are and what you want, and gives you the confidence for you to have that big orgasm in the room. But you got to fix those other things, or at least attempt to get some sort of improvement in the areas that you need improvement in. Of course, getting professional help whenever needed. But that is what I wanted to emphasize today. The G spot that we've been talking about, and we know for the past how many years, is really the CUV complex, the clitero-urethro-vaginal complex. And I want you, guys and girls, men and women, to study it, know where it is. I'm saying intensely study it so that you can satisfy and be satisfied using the CUV complex knowledge, so that you can get your great orgasm and your great female ejaculation, maybe at the same time. Okay, guys? All right, nice talking to you. See you next time. Take care.